Well, I had the pleasure of actually meeting Nair shortly before tonight's event, and she really has an intriguing background, and I know Professor McNeil touched on that a little bit, but I would love for you to sort of expand on that for us.
Okay, well, hold on, sorry, I'm a loud talker. That comes probably from growing up in Tennessee and Georgia. That's where I did my undergrad engineering, mechanical, biomedical in the actually Department of Aerospace, which who knew that would come back to haunt me many years later. And then from there, I kind of knew I loved building things, but I didn't really have a good sense of depth perception or tiny hand coordination. So I moved from the mechanical stuff into law. I was like, I'm going to be a patent attorney. It's not what every little girl grows up to be, but thought it was really pretty exciting. What was cool about patent law is it allows you to look at all the new technology all the time, so you're always on the cutting edge of things. So patent attorneys always need to look at that stuff. And so I did that for a while. I went to a firm. Well, I went to Pepperdine Law School, and then went to a firm here in Santa Monica, and then joined Yahoo as a patent attorney and spent some time there. And then one day got a phone call to join the social network that I wasn't even on. And yeah, I was like, Facebook? I don't even know on Facebook. I was on MySpace. That's because I lived in LA. But anyway, so I joined Facebook and built their patent portfolio and built that team up for almost 5 years. It was an incredible experience. So we scaled from when I joined 500 employees to 6,000 employees in a matter of several years, which is kind of crazy. And then I took a leap into Dropbox to move totally out of law and to corporate development because I wanted, again, to work with startups and small companies. So we acquired over 19 companies while I was at Dropbox. So kind of got to learn that part of the funding, the acquisition, that kind of game from the other side. And after that, I kind of was looking for something. I wanted to get back into hardcore tech and a new industry again, something that was brand new and making a difference and change. And I saw a couple industries, and drones were one of them, and started researching for a while. And finally, the Skycatch opportunity came open.
Well, this is for a few of the Palmer Fellows out there that wanted me to ask you a little bit more about being Facebook's first patent attorney. I don't know, I'm sure you're a little limited in what you can share with us, but do you have any stories from that you can share with us?
It's interesting. I remember the first day that I joined, I was like, okay, so where's the portfolio? Like, what do I have to work with? And they slid a printed out spreadsheet across the table, and it was less than 10. And I was like, oh gosh. It was kind of daunting. And I would go into meetings, and engineers would be like, so you're a lawyer? Like, yeah, okay. Do I have to be here? It's like, oh gosh. Just kind of educating the company on the value of why we had to do it, because patents have a bad reputation for a lot of good reasons, and just showing why we needed to do that, why we needed to protect our company. And it ended up that we had to, this is all public, everyone knows Yahoo, ironically, filed a suit against us as we went to go public based on patent applications and patents. So we had to use our own portfolio to defend ourselves right before we went public. They were asking for a lot of money. So it ended up being, interesting in that way. But yeah, a full evolution from no patents to a whole portfolio to defend ourselves to go public. Yeah.
Well, and that's actually a great segue into my next question, now kind of focusing on entrepreneurship. I know from even my own experience in working with startups, a lot of times, their biggest cost to getting off the ground are legal fees.
Yeah.
And hiring a patent lawyer, and you see a lot of entrepreneurs trying to cut corners or do things on their own, but that can have some real implications down the road. So can you speak to maybe some things that entrepreneurs can do on their own and what they actually need a patent lawyer for?
I would say, I guess, in terms of when to call a lawyer, when not to. Definitely for patents, you want to call a patent attorney, only once you can draft them, but who'll know how to actually extract the real core value. I mean, there are a lot of people who can draft an application for you, but if you're not hearing certain trigger words like what's your business, what's your vision, what are you thinking, what are you going to be doing 5-10 years from now, if they're not asking about your future business, if they're not asking about how you think about it, and if they're not really getting into your core, the heart of what you feel of it, they're not a good patent attorney. So because they're not going to be able to draft that application the way that you see things going. They're just going to kind of go from what was on the board and just put that. But that's one thing to look for.
Sorry, going a little off topic. And then seminal contracts. Please, please, please have a very good attorney write your like strong, like big partnership contracts, because it's so much more expensive to fix one and to get out of one if you can, than to have it properly drafted. Other things you can probably manage on your own for a while, but I think those are probably the two biggest things, other than funding, obviously, that you have to really watch out for.
And one of the challenges that startups face, the ones that are successful, 2-3 years after their initial founding, they start thinking really about their long-term vision and about scaling the company, which you've talked a little bit about that. A lot of that turns on proper timing.
Yeah.
How do you know, like, when is the right time to grow? When is it time to take that next step, and what are those steps?
So the question is, what are the next steps on scaling? Okay. I think, Simon and Dan talked about this earlier. I think it's all about who you hire. It's so important. It just hire slow and fire quickly. That's super, super important, especially when you're a really small core group, 1 or 2 people that don't fit the mold. It doesn't work out for anyone. But it's just so important that you really hire people who believe in your culture, believe in your mission, are there for the right reasons. I think they said it better themselves because they're the CEO founders, but that is the most important thing in scaling, is hiring the right people. Because if you don't hire the right people, you can't scale, because you can't delegate, right? You can't grow your business and company because you don't have that trust and you don't have the right people to take over the areas for you, right? It's very hard to let go when you're a CEO founder, right? This is your baby. And so you have to pick the right people. I think that's number one in do or die.
And having done like so many, M&A deals, like given your experience, I'm sure that there are some entrepreneurs out there that already have that mindset that they want to sell their company from the get-go once it gets off the ground, versus retaining ownership or trying to take it public. And so, are there any steps outside of the ordinary for somebody who is looking specifically to sell versus, taking it public?
Oh, it feels like a trick question, because if you're building your company to sell, you may want to rethink what you're doing. I've acquiring 19 companies. None of those guys and girls wanted to sell their company. They just weren't able to make it to the Series B or what have you. If you are building for some reason your company to sell, I would just say let that mission be known to your employees. Position yourself differently to investors. I think there's a certain way to go about that, but I philosophically have a hard time with that, so I probably don't give very good advice. But yeah.
And then moving on to the fun stuff, to the drone technology a little bit. One of the things I'm curious about is, anytime you're working in a disruptive industry, and certainly in the drone industry, there isn't a lot of regulation. There isn't a lot of, case precedent to really advise and to assess risk on particular initiatives. And so what do you sort of use as a guide, I guess, for yourself? We use whatever current law we have, and then kind of go from there. I have some personally good friends in the drone industry as well to lean on, and we kind of get together and see what the most common sense approach is. Also policy advisors, and then at the end of the day, you have to kind of do what you think is right. I think there's a misconception that drone companies just kind of want to go for it and push the envelope. We're also very concerned with safety. Everybody who I talk to who's in this industry has a real concern with safety and doesn't want to just make whatever rule they can, the right rule for the industry to grow and for free people to be careful. So I would say probably existing law, what you think my law might be, and then probably your heart. Yeah. And then can you tell the audience a little bit more about Skycatch?
Sure. Skycatch is one of the drone startups in San Francisco, and what we focus on is we're a commercial platform for any kind of industry verticals like construction, mining, things of that nature. We have an autonomous solution. Yeah.
And how would you say? I mean, are you guys doing any work overseas? And how do those regulatory schemes differ?
We do. We have a major Japanese client called Komatsu, and what we do is we use the drones to collect data, and we feed those into their machines. They have automated construction machines, groundwork, earth machines. I don't know if you know, but Japan has a workforce problem, so they're automating a lot of their machines, and they're using our drones to do that and our data to do that. For Japan right now, they have some proposed rules, so it's very similar. I have this spreadsheet I'm sure that every drone lawyer has. Existing rules, proposed rules, and it's just across every single country. Everyone's changing the laws right now, so it's just incredibly dynamic.
And what do you see in terms of the capability? And I know Skycatch primarily focuses, I believe you said, on construction, correct? Construction.
That's a primary.
And mining. And I'm sure there's some things that you can't tell us, but I mean, what do you see in terms of what drone technology is going to be able to do in terms of revolutionizing those industries?
I mean, currently what I can share, we talk about, volumetric analysis, anything from 3D modeling, groundwork, mining, the same thing. I mean, anything that takes humans hours or days to do, we're trying to automate and do, especially where it's unsafe for them to go in the mining industry. That's what I can talk about.
And do you have any, I guess, last words for our crowd here? Words of advice, maybe? How about words of advice for the students?
Oh boy, I don't know if I should be giving advice. I feel like I sometimes fell into where I am, but always kind of, look back, kind of had a goal of I wanted to be in certain areas and what I thought was interesting. I would say stay scrappy, and also know that there's going to be some tough jobs. I had some tough jobs along the way, but I knew that it was going to help me get to where I wanted to be. But it's sometimes hard when you're in the middle of it. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Down from the Bay Area. Thank you, Nair.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.